My name is Phoebe Dubar, also known as IKSRE. I'm a vocalist, viola player, music producer, certified practicing sound healer, and card-carrying audiophile who experiences the world through her ears. And over the last couple of months, we've dived deep into the topic closest to my heart, sound. What is it, and why it makes us feel the way it does? We've spoken to experts, and I've treated you to a few sound healing practices along the way. Welcome to the final episode of What is Sound, recorded on the stolen lands of the Boonwurrung and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. Always was, always will be. Look closely at the most embarrassing details and amplify. Brian Eno's oblique strategies. So it seems kind of ridiculous that I saved speaking to a musician until the last episode, but here we are. Finally, a chat with a musician, a person who makes songs or music, and gorgeous ones at that. He is a multi-instrumentalist, producer and label boss with the gorgeous Polar Seas imprint and has dozens of releases under his belt. He's pretty much the definition of prolific, but not only that is his music absolutely stunning to boot. If you've ever been to one of my sound baths in real life, you've probably heard one of his albums as you've been settling in, because I play them all the time. And I was also lucky enough to collaborate with him on a couple of tracks last year, and there may be some more on the horizon too. Would you please introduce yourself to the What is Sound listeners? Who is this?
Hi, my name is Brad Deschamps. I am a musician from Toronto, Canada. Thank you for a lovely introduction.
Amazing. Thanks, Brad. And you are also better known as?
Anthéne.
Anthéne. Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I start the podcast with the same question I ask everyone, and I'd love to hear your answer to this. Try not to overthink it too much, or overthink it. It's up to you. It's a big one. What is sound?
Sound to me, has always kind of been associated with music. I've been fascinated and kind of obsessed with music since I was a kid in various forms, from like punk music when I was a teenager to just like indie rock stuff, ambient music, post-rock, classical music. Just, I don't know, to me, it's just always been something I've been fascinated by. And I think it was kind of when I started recording my own music that I really started to imagine other sound as also being potentially part of field recordings, samples, whatever they have you. And that's when it like really kind of hit me that like would incorporate all these different worlds into music. Yeah.
Amazing. I can totally empathize with that. And I know exactly what you mean by field recordings, but for someone who might not know, what exactly is a field recording?
To me, it's essentially recording just found sounds that you hear when you're out for a walk, or when you're sitting in your backyard, or just whatever you're doing, or in some cases recording. I have a hydrophone to record sounds underwater.
Do you?
That I've used on a few recordings. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've kind of brought it up to a cottage the last couple of years when I've gone with my family. Just kind of stood in the water holding a kind of portable recorder and holding a microphone in the water like a fishing wire. I'm sure I look insane to anyone going past, but it captures some interesting things.
Yeah, what kind of sounds do you get? I'm assuming there's no whales or anything.
No, it's more like, I guess you get like, I kind of am a big fan of the sound you get literally just running it across the sand on the floor of like a lake or something. Like these kind of scratchy textures, which are kind of cool. And even then, just the sound of dropping it in the water, you get that like plonk kind of sound, and it just picks up, just random little things. If you leave it in the water and splash the water while you're standing over it, you get these little different textures coming in. Kind of interesting. So I've used it a handful of times, but don't overuse it. But yeah,
that is unreal. So when you're getting field recordings, I know me personally, I usually am trying to capture like a whole, I guess, soundscape. That's what really sort of gets me inspired, that sort of soundscape. So you're also trying to capture just individual sounds as well too.
Yeah, I would say any recordings I make are pretty short. Less about capturing, if I say I'm sitting outside, I'm not necessarily capturing 10 minutes of, wind and bird song or something. It's more about...
So that's me.
I don't know. Yeah, see, I don't know. I find I've never... I mean, I've done that, but I haven't found a practical use for it. When I'm like making music, for some reason, I feel like it doesn't always mesh with what I'm doing. So I'm kind of become more into even. I see field recordings. A lot of it is just sitting in my den where my studio is. Just like, what can I make sounds with, and then record them into either a microphone or this really weird lo-fi app that I have on my phone.
What is it?
That you can then manipulate. It's called Virtual Recorder. I can't find it anymore in the Android store, so I hope I don't ever lose it. But you can record something into it and play it back at any speed you want, in forward or in reverse. You can adjust all the playback speed. It's a free app. Anyway, I find it very useful. So just for recording, it's as simple as like, I don't know, marbles on a table or something, or 30 seconds of sound of that. Play it back, manipulate it, see where you get kind of an interesting textural sound where you can't tell what it is anymore. It just becomes sound, just something that I can integrate into a piece.
Amazing. So that's really drawing out those particular frequencies and actually turning them into something completely unique.
Yeah, exactly. Just to get like, I don't know, I like texture. So it's like I record most of my music is quite melodic, I think, in the sense that there's like chord progressions and some structure, and then it's nice to have these kind of textures under that are more mysterious, I find.
Yeah, that's unreal, and I think that describes your music so perfectly. It's textural but melodic at the same time, because a lot of music in this sort of, in inverted commas, ambient sphere is very long form and doesn't move a lot. But that's what's so gorgeous about your music, and that's why I've loved working with you so much, because and loved listening to your music, because it's that there is that melody to it, and that, which I think, I don't know, I think it gives people the opportunity to maybe connect with it a little bit more as well too. The melody is what sort of draws out those emotions maybe a little bit more.
I mean, I think so. Like I connect with it more as a result. Like I've made pieces that are kind of longer with less structure and like less focus on melody. And I'd say 95% of the time I end up scrapping them. Because I just feel like I listen back and I'm like, I have nothing to grab onto here. So I either try to rework it and build it into something, or just forget it and start something else. Because I just feel like I've always kind of liked, I mean, I spend more time listening to non-ambient music than I do listening to ambient music. So for me, it's about music that's melodic and like to latch on to, lyrics or phrases or piano or guitar melodies or whatever it is. So
yeah,
it's attempting to, I guess, do that, but in ambient music, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel a similar way as well too. I came from it, making different styles of music as well, and I think that sort of comes across in what I do as well too, and it's the same with you. So what was your background? I haven't actually. You mentioned punk before. Is that like how did Brad become Anthéne? Like what was the progression? Like what was your earliest musical memory, and like what all the way through?
Well, yeah, like what
the origin story.
The origin story, yeah. I started playing guitar when I was like 12, I think. 11, 12. And I was, into rock music or whatever, and then punk music, and kind of, I learned guitar based on, you know, power chords and all that kind of stuff that I play and that kind of music. And then gradually I kind of got into more like kind of indie rock kind of stuff. I was in bands kind of while I was in university and stuff. I played in a kind of post-rock sort of band while I was in my mid-20s. And during that point, I met my friend Mike, who I made music as North Atlantic Drift with, and we kind of started making something a little bit more kind of ambient sounding. Just the two of us kind of producing more, I don't know, synthy kind of music. And a couple of years after doing that, I started recording my own stuff. I wasn't super comfortable with my own skills producing things on my own until I kind of did some of that music with my friend Mike. And then once I kind of started recording on my own, I felt like I kind of got better and better at it. Then I started releasing stuff. It took me a few years to be like, okay, I'm going to put a tape out under me as Anthéne.
And that was how long ago? How long was that ago?
2015 was the first one I put out.
And I just counted on Spotify. I think it was, 22 albums?
Yeah, something like that.
It's bonkers.
There's probably more on Bandcamp. There's probably more on Bandcamp than that, because a lot of times I don't bother uploading to Spotify. I don't know. It started. I think the first album I did with Mike as North Atlantic Drift was 2012, 2011, one or the other, and we did like 4 or 5 albums, and once I started doing my own, it just, I don't know. I just felt like for a period I was just like recording, and releasing stuff, sending stuff to labels, just trying to get stuff out there. It's been a bit slower since I've had a child, but I've
not
tried
that
to
slow.
still
All right.
not that slow, but it's been different. I'll put it that way. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and I mean, I'm happy with most of it, I think. So
it is nice, beautiful music, and and actually on that with the child thing, me too being the mother. Well, you're clearly a father of a child. I'm a mother of a child. I 100%, I came to writing this style of music. It was almost a form of therapy for me when I was in those early days of motherhood and just exhausted, and I would sit down and work on a song while Stella was having a nap, and she, that's how that music came to me. It was almost this form of therapy. And actually our mutual friend and member of our little Twitter chat group, Cynthia, actually, Cynthia Marine Eyes, she tweeted something gorgeous the other day around, how lucky are we as musicians to be able to, process our experiences through this music. And it was something along those lines. I have to find the exact wording. And I'm just wondering whether, fatherhood has been a part of that for you, using music to actually process the highs and the lows of being a parent.
I think so. I mean, I have found like days or weeks when I find the time to actually sit down, and even if it's just picking up a synth or a guitar for 20 minutes, I do find just mentally you feel a bit better about things, just because it's like you know how it is. It's exhausting sometimes being a parent. It's some days are harder than others. So when you can actually find time to do something you enjoy doing, whether you're recording a track or just ling around for 20 minutes, it's still there's a sense of gratification. And I think there's a sense of you can kind of let something out a little bit, right? Like whether you're, I don't know, with me it's anxiety, whether you're anxious or whatever about what's going on, at least it allows you to kind of take a minute and breathe. And I get what you're saying, because obviously I feel that with your music as well, that like it does have a kind of balming is not maybe the right word, but a very kind of soothing effect, right? So the process of making it also probably has that kind of effect on you, right? Like while you're doing it.
100%.
Right.
People often ask me if I feel relaxed when I do a sound bath. I don't, purely because it's all giving and being mindful of other people's energy, and often I take on what other people are releasing, letting go. So it can actually be quite a draining experience for me doing a sound bath. Everybody else is chill and relaxing, absolutely. That's the point. But for me, it can actually really zap me and sort of drain me. And I know we spoke about this, I think, over email a couple of times last year, you know, at the end of a busy weekend, I'm like, But writing music in the studio is totally different. You just get lost in this world, and you just and like even just having your instruments around you, it's just fun sometimes. You know, you're just like, what am I going to do now? Oh my God, I'm going to turn on that synth. I haven't used that for a few weeks. I actually realized that I hadn't.
I could try this.
Yeah, I apologized to my Moog grandmother the other day because I hadn't played it for a few weeks, and I was like turning it on and going, I'm sorry, baby, I haven't played you for a few weeks, you know. And it's like that. There's these fun toys. So actually, on that, tell me what toys have you got? I know at one point when we were making something, you were like, I'm going to add some harmonium. I'm like, harmonium. I was like, yay, you've got weird instruments too. So talk me through going from like more predictable, like I've got, you know, synths. Although, have you got a really weird, cool synth?
I have far more guitar stuff than synth stuff. I now have too many guitarists. I've gone a bit nuts, and they're all even. Actually, my wife said to me the other day, the one I got last week looks very much like another one that's here. I'm like, yeah, it looks similar, but it's different, I promise. So I do have several guitars. I really enjoy, I have these like hollow body electric guitars. Personally, I have a Guild Starfire I really like, and I just got this Fender Coronado, which is like an obscure Fender. It's like a hollow body guitar. It's kind of strange, but I think it's really cool. So I've been playing with those. But I have a lot of pedals and stuff that I've been running stuff through to get some weird textures. And I also have the Moog.
I know, I always say Moog as well too, and then people correct me and they're like, no, it's Moog.
I know.
I don't know.
I know, but it's like one of those things that was in my brain for years and years.
Me too.
Moog, and now I can't get it out. I have a little Korg mini log.
Oh, me too. They're great.
They're fun. I haven't plugged either of those in a while. And I have a little Juno, not an original Juno synth, one of the reissues that Roland did. It's like a little tiny one, but it sounds pretty identical to my ears. That one, I think that's probably my favorite one to play, because it's easy to just pick up and play something and it sounds great.
Yeah.
Whereas you got to do a little bit of like fine tuning with the other ones. Sometimes I don't really feel like messing around.
Yeah, usually, like that's the thing with the grandmother. I love my grandmother, but it usually involves, you know, you can't just turn it on and just go, duh, and do a thing.
I know. Exactly. But in terms of weirder stuff, I do have a harmonium. That's a good story. My wife actually brought it back from India.
Tell me more. When was that?
She before we got married, 2010, she went there to actually get a wedding dress. And I kind of just not joking, but I asked if she found any cool instruments like a harmonium. I'd love one. Not thinking she would really buy one and try to bring it back. So she actually did buy one, and it came in like, she had to check it on the plane. Obviously, it came in like a little case. By the time it like made it home, the case was destroyed. Yeah, but the harmonium was still intact.
Oh, amazing!
So it's such a nice sound.
Yeah.
It's that I kind of play it sparingly. It's a bit loud. So like obviously a lot of my music time is when my daughter's asleep. I can't really just pull that out and start like it's almost like an accordion, you know what I mean? Like got that like loud kind of sound.
Totally.
But then I have a kalimba I use sometimes. I like to use that for just kind of random phrases, reversing them, pitching them down, whatever. and then tongue drum as well.
You could pretty much do a little mini sound bath with that stuff.
I probably could. See, but like you're saying, I know you just said that you find it a bit not like you find it kind of exhausting doing a sound bath. I feel like I would find it very anxiety inducing having to perform in front of people who are trying to relax. But if I, accidentally play something awful, and then,
the thing is, it's all about when you actually, and this is the thing, I don't get nervous before a sound bath because it's actually not about me. It's actually about them and their experience. Mm-hmm. And so once you actually just surrender to that and just go, they're not judging me. My job is to actually help slow down their brainwaves, help them drop into the parasympathetic nervous system. It's a totally different thing to a performance. A performance is like, oh my God, people are watching me, and they're gonna be like, oh, that chord was crap, or oh, she messed that up on viola, or oh, that note was a bit off, or kind of thing. No,
That's true,
look, 99% of the time your audience isn't doing that. By the way, your audience is actually just behind you and going, isn't this great? And they're not noticing all the stupid little mistakes.
Of course.
Like it was great that I did a gig last year, and unbeknownst to me, but there was like a lead on my viola microphone that was just starting to come a little bit loose. And when I went to play a particular song, it just popped, and it then got looped, this pop, and it was like this, and it sounded, and I was like, oh shit, oh my God. And of course, because it was layered, there were so many other layers, like it was just, I had to just roll with it. And at the end, so many people were like, oh, that fireworks sound, that was just amazing. And it just took me, it was like, okay, cool. Yeah.
But that's fireworks the beauty of it. Like with this kind of music, you could, accidents often sound like they're part of it. Like that's just, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Unless you hit like a really, really, really wrong note.
Totally.
Everything else sounds like, oh, that I like that weird crackling sound. It's like, oh, that was my looper pedal turning on or something. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly.
Sometimes it works. And I've used a lot, I'm sure you've probably done the same. A lot of stuff that ends up, not a lot of stuff, but some stuff that ends up in my recordings is like something accidental. I'm like, oh, that actually sounds kind of cool.
Totally.
Maybe I'm going to turn up that frequency and EQ it so it stands out even more. Like
100%. That's the thing. There's in the Brian Eno oblique strategies cards, there's something. It's like find the mistake and amplify it or something. Have you got the?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Have you got those cards? Well, I've got the app. I don't have the cards.
But I know what you mean though.
It's actually an app as well too, which is fun. So occasionally I'll pull that out. But yeah, it's like
that one's so true.
Find the mistake and then amplify it. Just make it bigger. See what happens. Worst that can happen is you're going, that didn't work. But the same thing happened with me. I was editing a song recently, and I was cutting out little. I think I was talking to you before about those headphones that sometimes make creaky noises. And when I was recording the vocal, it happened to pick up a couple of creaks, and I was going through and editing out the creaks. But I realized that once I edited out, a couple of the creaks were actually adding to the song. Once they had reverb on them, they actually created this texture that when it was taken out, I went, oh, it's not the song anymore.
It's interesting because I know, obviously you spoke that we've done a few things together. I seem to remember we did a piece and this is, I guess, the beauty of collaboration as well, because obviously we're our own worst critics.
Oh, totally.
So I think you did a vocal addition to a song, and I think I remember you saying that there was something like a crackling or something that you're like, oh, I just noticed. You're like, I just noticed this weird sound. Whatever. I'm like, yeah, I heard that. I thought it was great. Like, let's leave. You're like, we should EQ that out. I'm like, actually, no, I think we should leave that in. That sounds great. Because I was like, that sounded intentional to me almost, right? Like, that's kind of the.
That's the thing. That's the thing. More pops, more crackles. And that's the thing as well too, often it's the intent behind the performance. As long as the intent's there, you don't need that perfection. You strive for perfection, and you actually focus on the wrong thing. You lose the intent, which is where the emotional connection is, I think.
I think so too. I mean, I actually find it distracting sometimes listening to music that is too perfect. Because it's just, because you're right. It's like, yeah, the kind of emotional experience or whatever, it disappears a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it doesn't really sound like this was made by a person, using their equipment. It's more like this was something that was like recorded 50 times until they got it just so. And then even then, they made sure they took out any weird little. It's like you can leave that stuff in.
Yeah, absolutely. As Miles Davis said, there is no mistakes. Just if I think his thing was if you make a mistake, do it 3 more times, and it just becomes the melody or it becomes the hook.
Right.
And
exactly.
I often do that actually, particularly because sound baths are always improvised. There's occasionally melodies that I'll go back to, or I'll find myself on the handpan. I'll be like, oh, I'm playing the melody from one of the tracks on Awake Within the Dream. I'll just do it without even realizing it. But more often than not, vocally, what I do in a sound bath is totally improvised. And often I'll sing something and then I'll sing something else and I'll go in my head, oh, I shouldn't have done that, but I'll be like, stuff it, I'm just going to do it a couple more times, because then it no longer becomes a mistake. It actually becomes purposeful.
Then you're like, oh, yeah. Everyone's like, oh, they meant to do that. There's like a nice hook there.
Exactly.
Or whatever it is, right? Like
exactly. So make mistakes, kids, and then just amplify them, do them more, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's very true.
Go to music school and then just throw it all against the wall. Did you go to music school?
No, I did not. Did you go to music school? I think you did, right?
I did. I when I was growing up, I played in orchestras, in the Melbourne Youth Orchestra and all the junior orchestras that lead up to that. And then I did year 11 and 12 at the Victorian College of the Arts secondary school. And that's kind of the training ground for most professional musicians in Melbourne, certainly in jazz and classical anyway. And
that was for viola.
Yeah, viola. And I didn't go to I didn't follow on and do uni. Long story, but I had talk about horrible teachers that changed the course of your life. Long story, but I really lost faith in myself, despite being the lead viola in the Melbourne Youth Orchestra, and I completely lost faith in myself, and so ended up going and doing some other things for a few years, and sort of thinking, I need a backup plan. I still played in bands and everything. I left school and pretty much joined a band. We just wanted to be Radiohead with a female vocalist. And we're doing all that kind of stuff, which is heaps of fun, and then got into more dancey stuff and electronic stuff. And then, about 12 years ago, just went, whoa, what am I doing? I'm spending all my time doing the backup plan and not enough time doing music. So sort of did a full 180 and got back into full-time music versus part-time music and full-time other stuff. So, yeah, that's how.
Right.
Yeah, but
how long?
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, but how long? When did you start doing sound baths?
I started training in that 7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did my training with the Sound Healing Academy, and then I think I took my first sound bath. God, I've lost track of time with COVID. What is the years before COVID? I feel like it was sometime in like late 2018, early 2019 that I took my first sound bath. So, yeah, and just the need for it. It's grown so much, particularly in Melbourne and around in the last few years. So it's just kind of gone straight up. So, yeah. And I think particularly, trained practitioners are really sort of in demand, which is good. So in terms of your inspiration, what inspires you? Like, I mean, you've mentioned obviously recording weird sounds and using them and everything. What where does your inspiration come from?
It's difficult. I mean, what is my inspiration? I think, like, partially it's just having been, I feel like I've just always been really overly obsessed with music. Like, I know other people, like some of my friends and stuff are also really into music, but I don't know, I've just always been very into it. It's like a weird, you know, degree, right? And it's just like, I know a lot of people, you know, once they're kind of in their 20s or whatever, they kind of, you know, move on from the, okay, I played in a band for a bit, but now I'm going to be a serious human being.
Get a real job. Yeah.
I mean, I do have a real job, but like they kind of, you know, put all that stuff, you know, away as like a childhood thing. And for me, it was never like that. It was always like, oh, I want to keep doing this. So it's like, I didn't always know that I wanted to necessarily like, you know, play in a band and play live. It's just like, I want to have some outlet for this. And I guess, yeah, just gradually kind of morphed into this. And I think starting a label also kind of allowed me to really be active in music without even necessarily making it. Like feeling like I was putting something out there, you know, regardless of whether it's me making it or someone else making it, just something that I enjoy. It's kind of a nice feeling. Like, I mean, yeah. And I feel like seeing other people, you know, start little labels, you know, do this kind of stuff is inspiring too. Like, okay, I can do this. I can, you know, try to make this work. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a big inspiration for it. I mean, that's pretty obvious inspiration, I want to say, but it's probably the truth. Yeah.
And do you have moments, I certainly do, in terms of being inspired to write, I have moments where I'm just like suddenly hear a melody in my head. I'll often be listening to something else, or, I mean, being out in the living natural world is certainly a major inspiration for me, but often I'll hear something, it's almost this compulsion, like I just have to record this. And if I'm not anywhere near my studio, I'll just record little snippets into my phone. I've got so many voice memos of little melodies
like
and
humming.
stuff. Yeah, humming.
Right. Yeah.
And then it's interesting because often I'll then go back and start to write a song around that particular melody and might be singing it, and then occasionally I've turned around and gone, actually it's not working because that's not supposed to be sung, and then I'll be like, yes, that's supposed to be played on viola, that melody or something. So yeah, do you have moments like that where you're just like, oh, I just have to write, I have to, that compulsion?
I think, yeah, I mean, I used to, I think more when I was like writing more still song-based music when I'm doing, but like when I was playing guitar in like indie bands or whatever, I think that's where I'd be like, oh, I think like this melody in my head, I got to like try to, you know, translate that to a guitar or to whatever else. Now I feel like it's like I find a lot of time when I'll start making music that I come up with a melody. I don't know, sometimes like I end up scrapping that melody and building something else instead. It's like things build in a different way. So I found I've been less, I don't know if that makes sense, but like kind of less focused on like if I have a melody, I need to put that down. Because I find sometimes the first thing I get down, once I start adding layers around it, kind of like, oh, okay, well maybe it sounds better without that first thing I did, and then build it somewhere else, right? Like, so it's a bit of a different way of thinking than I used to, I guess. I know, I guess it's different. Obviously, if you obviously use your voice and viola, those are both naturally very melodic instruments, right? Like, and so in that sense, it makes a lot of sense to be like, I need to get this melody down. Because when I listen to music, that's like those things can always jump out, right? They can have a vocal line or a viola or something that sticks out. There's a nice melody to latch onto. Yeah.
So for you then, is it more, rather than that sort of compulsion to write, is it more like you're finding the time and the space to actually sit down and write, and you're like, cool, I've got 20 minutes. I've got, you know, Safia's asleep. I need to, yeah.
That's big right now is like, yeah, when she's in bed, like, okay, let me kind of sit down and do something. And it's, like I said, sometimes nothing. Sometimes, you know, you sit down and pick up an instrument, just play around a bit. And like, I don't feel like recording today. I'm not sure anything to come of it, so I'll play, or just push record and see what comes out, and then try to edit little bits and pieces of it and say like, oh, I quite like that, and then I mean, there are often times where I could sit here and finish a piece in a couple hours. Like just if something comes out, I'm like, okay, I like where this is going. And instead of walking away and coming back here the next day and maybe not feeling as inspired by it, I'll try to keep adding layers and, turn it into something. So yeah, it can happen pretty quickly if I do it that way, but it depends. I mean, it's an inspiration to aren't, I don't know, overly exhausted or whatever, right?
And I think it's just, coming back to the doing it for the joy of it as well, isn't it? Because, we all started doing this because we enjoyed doing it. And then suddenly it becomes something, you're releasing things, and then, there's potentially expectation around that, like, this one was this successful, so I'm hoping the next one will be and stuff. And so it's really hard to not let that sort of joy and the reason why you were drawn to it in the first place be stripped away from it, I guess. And I think that's part of it too. Like often people will say, I can't sing or something, but I just love doing it. I'm like, just do it. Sing, enjoy. If, I'm no good at the piano, I just really love to learn piano. I'm like, just go and learn, go and get some lessons. There's dozens of piano teachers in your suburb. Just go and find one, go and learn. You don't have to be professional. You don't have to get up on a stage and perform. If you get joy from playing a piano, as badly as it is, just do it.
Exactly. I know. It's there's so many options. Like even actually my dad, who's 75, is like, he played guitar when he was younger but dropped it. But a couple of years ago he bought like a little cheap, electric guitar and a little amp just to try to learn some chords and whatever, like for something. It's like, why not, right? Like,
exactly. No, that's the whole thing. I was talking to a woman at Stella's school the other day, and she was saying that she's Indian, and she said she'd learned sitar years and years ago and then hadn't touched it, and she's recently started doing lessons again and saying how much she's just loving it. And I'm like, exactly. Play the sitar. You've got it at your house. Play it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't let it sit there and gather dust. Musical instruments want to be played. They want to resonate.
It's just, exactly. I mean, I think it's difficult for a lot of people because I see it's difficult to like make the time for it. Like, I think that's the issue that most people have. Our like society is built around, you're supposed to work a 9-to-5 job, and then you come home and take care of your kids and you cook them dinner. And like, most people don't have the mental energy to then like, okay, now I'm going to sit down and learn an instrument. It's like, it's about trying to find that balance and trying to find the time to do it. Like, I don't know if you find the same thing, but some days it's a challenge, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then they're the days when you need to, I think, actually just own that and actually get up and just walk away and go, it's not working today. It's just not working. I'm not going to. Because otherwise it's almost like you're creating these neural pathways that are going to then in the future go, I don't want to play piano or sitar or viola or sing or whatever because I'm not good at that and I don't enjoy it. It's like, if you're doing it and you're not enjoying it, you should just go, not today, and walk away from it. Because the days when it is joyful, and I think it's almost actually acknowledging that those things do actually make you happy and just enjoying that, because that's the thing. It's all too easy just to go, I'm too tired, I'm just going to sit down and watch Netflix for 3 hours or something. But hey, you sitting down and just jamming on your guitar with some headphones on, with some cool pedals and just getting some cool sounds out might actually fulfill you and actually make you feel happier than you sitting and watching 3 hours of Netflix.
It absolutely does. Like, even if it turns into nothing. Just, there's a lot of cool stuff to watch on TV, but some days it's helpful to do something else, to engage in something,
like 100%.
Yeah.
Speaking of cool stuff on TV, what is your favorite, this is a totally random question, what is your favorite music documentary or, movie or something music related to watch? In case it's something I haven't seen, then I can watch it.
Man, I think the ones that come to mind. Um, I remember really enjoying. I think the ones that jump out are obvious to me because I really liked the bands, especially. But there was a documentary on Big Star that came out back in 2011 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
It was after Alex Chilton died. I don't know if you're familiar with Big Star.
No.
They were
Canadian?
They were like no, they were American. They released a couple albums in the 70s, but they were kind of like one of the first of those like kind of I don't know, like power pop kind of
Mm-hmm.
bands, like very melodic stuff. Yeah. Anyway, they released, and then they did like two albums, and the third album, it's just really, it's got these like beautiful pop songs, and then these really grim, depressing pieces. But it's my favorite of theirs. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think they were probably doing a lot of drugs at the time or whatever. But
Mm.
you know, anyway, cool band. I remember really enjoying the documentary. I'm a huge fan of Low,
Mm.
so they did that doc. Don't remember, probably 12, 13 years ago. It was You May Need a Murderer. That's what it was called. But it was about Alan Sparhawk and his wife Mimi. I don't know if you're a fan of Low or.
I do.
No.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen the movie though.
So obviously, okay, yeah, it was a doc from. I think Alan was going through some like mental health issues at the time. It was a very kind of intimate look at them, and yeah, that one is great. And man, I wish I could think of other ones. I've seen a lot of random music docs, but can't think of any else off the top of my head.
Have you seen?
I remember back in the day. I remember loving "I'm Trying to Break Your Heart," the Wilco one from like 20 years ago, whenever that was, when they made Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. That was cool too.
Okay.
Sorry.
There's 3 more to add to my list. Then I was going to say, have you said, is your wife musician?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
I highly recommend. I watched with my husband, who's not musical at all, loves music and is really invested in being a part of music, but just doesn't play anything. We watched the Mark Ronson series, which is on Apple, I think. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it.
It's actually brilliant to watch with a non-muso partner because he just was like, oh, this is so cool. Like now I understand like reverb and distortion and stuff. And it was funny because the remix that I did for Tewkesbury, I was working on that after we'd seen an episode of the show. It's called Watch That Sound or Watch the Sound. And I'd done this beautiful viola line. It was a beautiful melody and I was mixing it. And he was working from home that day and he came past. He's like, yeah, babe, I really like the viola. But he goes, I feel like it needs a bit of dirtying up, maybe some distortion. And I was like, ooh, look at you, mister. I know what I'm talking about after seeing Mark Ronson talk.
Yeah. You need a little bit more reverb.
Yeah, totally. It was hilarious. And I did it. And then that's the remix now. So the distortion on the viola is all thanks to my husband and him watching Mark Ronson. So,
it's funny.
It is. No, it's a really good doco. But yeah, one that popped out immediately.
Tewkesbury is a fellow Canadian.
Huh?
I should point out. Tewkesbury, he's from Hamilton, I believe, which is an hour away from me.
Oh, amazing. Nice and close.
Fellow Canadian.
Nice and close. One that popped out immediately I just thought of, which I haven't seen in years, got to rewatch, is the Joy Division movie Control. Have you seen that?
Yes. Like the one with actors playing the band, right?
Yeah, that's unreal. I love that.
Oh, it was the guy who played, I don't remember the actor's name, but whoever played Ian Curtis was amazing.
So good. It was funny because I was never that much of a Joy Division fan, massive New Order fan, but I used to have chats with my friend who used to always say Love Will Tear Us Apart is the greatest song ever, and I'd be like, oh, I just don't get it. Just give me Joy, give me New Order any day. And then I think it was when I'd seen that movie and I saw it and I just went, oh my God, I totally get it now. And then I just went, right, that's it, Joy Division 100%. I still love New Order, of course, but
yeah, I love them both. I mean, I'd probably leave Joy Division if I had to. I saw Keanu Reeves was on Stephen Colbert recently, and Stephen Colbert asked him to pick like one song to listen to forever, and he picked Level Terrace Part by Joy Division. So that was interesting.
There you go. Yeah, it is a brilliant song. But yeah, I totally got it after, saying the full story and yeah. Anyway, so I'm just trying to work out whether there's anything else that we haven't covered. I guess one thing that I want to know is like, how do you relate to music, or how do you experience music as a musician? Like, is it physical? Is it emotional? Like, how do you experience music, or sound as well too? Like, yeah, how do you experience that?
I mean, I would say emotionally, probably. Like, yeah, ever since I was young, I'd go to bed, but then I'd sit in my room and just listen to tapes or CDs, and just absorbed in albums, and certain things hit you a certain way, right? Like, and I feel it's kind of the same way with the kind of music that you and I are making. It's still, there's like this emotion that it draws out, I think, right? That you kind of can latch onto. But I mean, speaking of Joy Division, like that's a reason to really engage with their music, is the emotion in it, right? Like it's hard not to like listen to it and just go like, oh my God, like this is, obviously knowing the whole history of them and all that stuff, it becomes more devastating, but like it's still, connects with you emotionally. I feel like that's how I've always listened to music. Like, yeah.
And so it'll be interesting.
How about yourself?
It'll be, I'm exactly the same, very much emotional, and, and I was just thinking then, it just raised a thought in my head around, AI music. And I was just thinking then, particularly, I mean, on the surface level, you could say, yeah, sure, a robot can write an ambient track because what is it? It's just textures and layers and absolutely, but would it be good? Potentially, probably not, because if it's stripped of the emotion, like how can you quantify that emotion? You just can't.
I feel like, and yeah, it's weird. Ambient music is tricky in that sense, because like, how do you really differentiate what's good and what's bad? Like, I struggle with that sometimes. I'm like, why do I like this, but I don't like this? Because someone else, an outsider listening, would probably hear them both and be like, sounds the same. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but I have this weird distinction sometimes. I'm like, no, I don't really connect with that, and I don't know exactly what it is all the time. It's not like it has to be overly produced. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there's just something tangible about some things that isn't there in others. And I don't know. I don't know if you find the same thing, but like, I don't, there's so much about there. I don't connect with all of it. So why is it that I connect with something more than something else?
No, exactly. What is it that makes you, like I was listening to Alex's latest show, Pacific Notions show yesterday, and there was one song by a Japanese artist, what was his name? No Turn, I think it was, or Non-Turn. And it just absolutely blew me away. And I had to stop the car and immediately jump on Bandcamp and download the latest album, because it was just like, this is just so gorgeous. I mean, what was it about those particular frequencies that just absolutely hit me here? And I thought, I have to get this album immediately. And yeah, it was funny because then he followed me on Twitter last night, because we were both on the same show, and he followed me on Twitter, and I sent him a message and was like, oh my God, I love your music so much. And then I thought, he's Japanese. He's probably like, what? I hope he speaks English. Or he'll use Google Translate and it'll be a really weird translation.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, who's this crazy person from Australia? But yeah, what is it that drove me to literally stop the car and immediately go and buy it? Go, yeah.
I know, because I find that too. There'll be something I hear, I'm like, oh my God, I have to go back up and, like you said, download it or whatever. But like, yeah, why? It's the same thing with running a label. I get sent demos, and I mean, to be fair, I don't have a lot of time to be releasing a ton of music. So I obviously am. I feel bad a lot of the time. I can't get around to listening to everything. But it's true. Like I'll be like, oh, I'll put this on, and sometimes something I just hear and go, wow, this is amazing, and I don't know what it is that made me. Like I can't even identify why did it. It's different if like if you're listening to a different type of music. Like even like I listen to a lot of like pretty quiet like folk music. Usually, the tone of the singer's voice or something will draw you in. There's something there that like you can say, oh, I know why I'm into this or whatever. But with ambient music, it's trickier, and I still can't put my finger on it.
No, we'll work it out one day. I mean, this is now 8 episodes of this podcast, and I'm still no closer to finding out that answer. I feel like it's something to do with frequency and resonance within us, but also maybe combined with memory, and maybe there's a sound or a particular frequency in that song that reminds you of something else, which then connects you to something in your past, like a good experience or something, or who knows. I mean, if you want to get woo-woo, it could be something to do with past lives, or, I'm convinced that my daughter was Japanese in a past life because she just, everything Japanese, like ever since she was a baby, just eats it. And she's quite choosy. She's not fussy, but she's choosy with other foods. So anyway, I'm apropos of nothing. I'm convinced that she was Japanese in another life. But
that is interesting because my daughter is very choosy about food, but she's 4.5 and she eats sushi.
Yeah.
Like vegetarian sushi. But of all the things to be into, she likes, tofu, rice, vegetables, sushi.
Yeah.
That's like her.
There you go. Well, I think we discussed getting our daughters in a girl band at some point. Did you end up getting her a synth?
I didn't. I was going to. I kind of thought I might wait another, because I kind of thought she might not enjoy it yet, and then it'll just get something that's like, pushed aside. She's turning 5 this year. I feel like this might be the year to do the what's the thing called,
the bleep box. It's a little So for listeners, it's a little synth that's designed for kids, and it's got pre-programmed sequences in it, so they don't need to actually play the notes. They just kind of hit a button and it makes a melody, and then the kids can do all the fun stuff, which is the tweaking of the filters and changing the speed and changing the pitch and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's got flashy lights and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So who plays it more, you or her?
I never actually played. At one point, I grabbed it and tried to put it through my my avalanche run pedal to see what would happen, and then it was just kind of all a bit weird, and then I totally lost focus. But yeah, you've reminded me I should actually have. Maybe I'll do that after I finish up with you. I'll go and sneak off while she's at school. Go and steal her students.
Honestly, that's what I pictured too. Like I would buy it for her, and she would push it aside, and I'd be like, "What can I do on this?"
Yeah, totally. It's no, you're right.
I bought a tongue drum, the kalimba, with the attempt of like, these are little simple things she could just hit, and she does enjoy playing the tongue drum, just hitting them with a mallet. But yeah, then I ended up just like, all right, I'm gonna put them in my studio and I will record with them.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good note to wrap it up on, the fact that I still haven't worked out what makes sound do what it does. We'll just have to continue the conversation. But thank you so much, Brad. Before we finish up, what have you got coming up? What has Anthéne /you/Polar Sleaze, there you go. Polar
Sleaze, that would be a very different label, I think.
Or even like polo sleaze, like some guy in a polo shirt just like sleazing. That could be quite funny. I can see a full meme around that. Yeah. Polo sleeves.
A sub-label with like, I don't know, some punk 7 inches or something like that. What do I have going on? I have a couple things on the label that are in the works. There's a couple tapes coming out in the summer. I just released 2 CDs by Moss Covered Technology and Gamarda Fungus. Igor Yalovich is in that project. He did an LP on the label a couple years ago. And myself, I have there's an LP coming out on Oscarson, a collab with Simon McCory that I think heard. The LP was delayed quite a bit, so the digital's already out. We're kind of waiting for the vinyl to arrive. I think it hopefully should finally be out end of this month, I think. And I just sent something to this label called Archives, based in Spain. It's going to release something in the summer on CD. It's, I guess, Mana that runs the label. He's released a couple things 1 week before. And then there are things later in the year that are still being finalized, I should say.
I can't imagine what you're talking about.
I can't either. I think that's what's on the go right now. And I'm just kind of working on random stuff at home, see if anything comes of it.
And where can people find you? You're Polar Seas everywhere, aren't you? Not Polo Sleaze. That's someone else.
No, you can try searching Polo Sleaze and see what comes up, I guess. But
I'm seriously going to search for Polo Sleaze immediately.
Put your
I bet there's
put your safe search on.
I bet there's someone on Instagram with Polo Sleaze. Let's say Polo Sleaze.
I should follow them.
Is there an account called Polo Sleaze? No results. There you go. There's a gap in the market, Brad. You should.
This is an opportunity. Opportunity for me.
This is where you can just like release another type of music completely and just be like completely, Polo Sleaze. You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be the next big thing.
So it's polar, as in Polar, seas, as in oceans, plural.
Exactly. I think I've got Instagram, Twitter, everything is just under Polar Seas. But I do announcements for the label or myself or post pictures of cats. So pretty much what you'll find there.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to chat and just to hang out again, to see your face again after lots of emails and tweets and messages and stuff. It's been an absolute joy, and can't wait to see what else comes out of your incredible musical output, and looking forward to diving into it as it comes out. And in closing, I always mention that, you know, I'm not sort of doing a Patreon or anything like that. I sort of say at the end of every episode that if people do want to direct any funds or, you know, feel like, you know, doing something good for the world, that there's a chosen charity for each episode. So had you thought about a charity that you'd like to highlight?
I mean, I tend to go for one that's very close to home. It's Toronto Cat Rescue. That's where I got my cats from. And I feel like it's a very worthy place to donate money to rescue cats that are in like bad situations in the city, like boarding situations, all that kind of stuff, and they try to find them homes. Cats.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a soft spot.
Amazing. So, Toronto Cat Rescue. Amazing. Yeah. I'm 100% behind that, being a cat mum myself as well. So
I know. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again, my friend. And I'll see you in our little ambient Twitter DM group.
Amazing. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that chat that I had with a wonderful friend and incredible musician, Brad Deschamps, otherwise known as Anthéne. I really strongly suggest you go and check out his music, either purchasing it on Bandcamp, where he actually receives a royalty directly from it, or from Spotify, which obviously is a streaming service. So do what you can, but check out his music regardless. And keep in mind a donation to the Toronto Cat Rescue if you feel like showing any kind of monetary appreciation for this episode or the podcast in general. So, in summary, I guess this is where I leave you guys. I set out to educate you all on sound, what it is, and have chats with different people about their different perspectives of how they experience sound and what it means to them. I hope you'll agree that we've covered off a lot of ground in that regard. We've had everything from the more physics side of things from Jimmy all the way through more esoteric understandings of sound from gorgeous Geraldine and Adriana, of course. We've spoken to Brad from the musical perspective and dived into the idea of inspiration and music making and where it all comes from. And of course, the most amazing chat that we had with Lionel as well about sound of country and how we can really deeply connect with nature and the sounds of the natural world, the living world, as I like to refer to it now. And of course, Tony from the Sound Healing Academy, who's doing such wonderful work. If you're interested in learning more about sound healing, I do run little workshops in Melbourne, but they're very basic. If you really want to get into it and do what I'm doing or what other qualified sound healers are doing, I strongly suggest you check out the Sound Healing Academy. The courses they run are absolutely incredible, and it will really set you up with a lifetime of knowledge, and who knows where it might take you. So thank you so much for listening. This is the last episode, and I may do a series 2. So if you enjoyed it, please be sure to reach out and send me a DM or send me a message on the contact form on my website. You could even make suggestions as what you might like to hear in a follow-up series. But for now, I'm going to jump back into the studio and continue working on my 5th album. I'm kind of at this point where I needed to have a little break from it and then come back to it with fresh ears, and I'm so fired up and ready to dive straight back into that. Meanwhile, what else have I got coming up? As always, I'll be doing regular sound baths around the beautiful city of Naarm in which I live. So keep an eye on my Instagram page. If you want to subscribe to my email as well too, you can shoot me an email at iksremusic@gmail.com and I can add you to my email subscription list. I've got a couple more little collaborations coming out, and there's some more little things that I can't really talk about, but for me it's really back into creating my next album and where that takes me. In closing, I guess, what is sound to me? I don't think I've actually answered that question. As far as I'm concerned, sound is everything. It is everywhere. It's quite simply the world around us, and it's a way for us to become present. It's a way for us to notice and remind ourselves that we are alive, and to connect us with this present moment and what is happening. It's inspiration, it is emotion, and as one of the beautiful little people in the intro and first episode said, which I just absolutely love, sound is inspiration flowing through the air. And with that, I'll leave you. And thank you so much for listening. Please like and follow and share this podcast. And as I said, if you want me to do another one, please make sure you reach out. Because if I hear enough people telling me they want to hear another series, hey, I might do one next year. Thank you so much, guys. And until we next speak, you can find me on Spotify, Instagram, everywhere else as IKSRE. And in case I hadn't mentioned it already, it stands for I Keep Seeing Rainbows Everywhere. Meanwhile, guys, keep your ears and your hearts open.